So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Helen O'Halloran, and I work in the Attractions Division in Fáilte, Ireland, based in Dublin. And our remit within the Attractions Division is to provide support and interventions, including funding, to attractions to enable them to develop brilliant visitor experiences. And we're involved with the Heritage Council in providing funding to Heritage Week, so I'm delighted to have the opportunity to come here today to speak with you and to, I suppose, talk a little bit more about potential visitors. Being Fáilte, Ireland, of course, we're focusing on the international visitor in primarily, and just how you can make your event more memorable for them. And bear with me because there's a certain number of points that Catherine has already touched on, so you'll probably hear a few things again, but they're important. So, no, whoops. Sorry. Broken it already. No, what I was doing there.
Yeah, I'll just click on.
Or do you want to just do slideshow? Like,
do you want me to keep doing it and you can?
Or just into slideshow? Is that?
That's how it goes.
Yeah. Oh no, sure.
Okay. I'll stay here.
Just in case. Yeah. Okay. So today I'm going to give you a few facts about tourism. I promise I'm not going to bombard you with stats and figures, but just I think it's important to get some overview. Some of you will be a lot more familiar with tourists than others. Some of you possibly have them at your events already. Others, it may be a new kind of avenue that you may wish to consider. But hopefully, if you are, you'll pick up a few nuggets here and there anyway. As I said, I'll be focusing mainly on the international visitor, who they are, where are they from, what are they looking for from their trip, and what makes an experience enjoyable for them. I'll also be covering a little as to what you can do to make the experience that you're developing for Heritage Week and throughout the rest of the year more memorable and entertaining for your audience. So my presentation will probably take about 20 minutes, so I'm happy to take questions then at the end, and then we can always discuss one-to-one if needs be. So, down to the money. Tourism is very valuable to the Irish economy. At a national level, it delivers €8.4 billion in visitor spend. That's from both the overseas visitor and the domestic visitor. By the domestic visitor, we're referring to Irish people who holiday in Ireland. This spend supports 225,000 jobs across hotels, restaurants, attractions, tour companies, etc. In 2016, the number of overseas visitors to the Republic of Ireland grew to 8.74 million. And if we include visitors from Northern Ireland, it was just over 10 million. In addition to that, domestic tourists took 9.3 million trips, generating over close to 2 billion in euro, 1.8 billion euro in revenue. And it's just to note that those figures exclude locals and day trippers. So we're extremely keen to attract the overseas visitor because in economic terms, overseas tourism is much more valuable because international visitors are going to spend money in Ireland that is raised outside of Ireland. And our research shows that every additional 1,000 overseas visitors generates 19 jobs in Ireland. So why would you consider growing your tourism audience? Because you can make, at a local level, you can make a big contribution to your local area and your local economy through generating greater spend and jobs in areas of the country that sometimes don't benefit from some other sectors of the economy. So depending on where you're located, it can be something to consider. It's not for everybody. Not everyone's event is going to be suitable for visitors. But if it is something that you're interested in, it's certainly worth exploring and putting the effort into. So in terms of where our visitors are coming from, despite Brexit, the UK is still our largest international market. We have over 30% of our overseas visitors to Ireland coming from Britain. You can see the figures there. In 2016, we had 3.6 million from the UK. The US, we have almost 1.3 million visitors. Less in numbers, but they're more valuable to us in terms of spend. They stay longer and they spend more. And the other big markets are from mainland Europe, Germany and France having the largest share, mainland Europe coming in at 1.8 million visitors in total. We're nearly close to the end of the figures, I promise. It will get a bit more interesting, I hope. Now, as you can see here, I mentioned not all of you are going to be in areas that are where your event might be suitable for an overseas visitor, but you can see here the pattern of the footfall and, if you like, the tourism hotspots. So 70% of the tourism stock, so by that I mean, you know, the accommodation, the attractions, activity providers, everything that's on offer to visitors is in 30% of the country. The majority of our overseas visitors spend at least one night in Dublin, and 37% of our visitors have been here before. So we want to encourage them to return and increase that percentage, because, for example, in Australia, I think the rate of repeat visits is 67%. So we want to develop experiences and events and offer them things that will encourage them to come back. So, as I said, if you're located particularly in one of these areas where there is strong tourism footfall, it's worth considering how you can capitalise on that location, how you can promote your event to the visitor and make it easy for them. Heritage Week events are extremely authentic. It's an opportunity for visitors to interact with the locals, so make it easy for them and get the word out there. Make them feel welcome, encourage them to stay longer, and in this way it's helping to increase dwell time and spend. So, who are our visitors and what do they want? A number of years ago, we conducted a body of research to look at what the best prospects were for Ireland. So 3 different segments were identified. Catherine referred to one of them, but I'm talking about kind of the grown-up overseas version when I refer to the culturally curious. We have the social organisers and we have the great escapers. So let's find out a little bit more about the culturally curious. So these are visitors who want to broaden their knowledge of our culture, our heritage and our traditions. They like authenticity, they want the local experience and they don't want to follow the crowd. You won't find them on a tour bus. They generally like to hire a car and travel at their own pace. They will seek out quality, fresh, local food. They like to wander, they like to explore through hiking, walking and cycling. They like to get off the beaten track and they want to get the inside track. They like to hear the local stories and they want to feel that they are experiencing something different, something that's not on offer to the masses. They're interested in storytelling and reenactments as a way of bringing history to life. So these are people that are, I would see, are a very strong target for those of you who are interested in the international visitor. Whoops, sorry. So then we have our great escapers. So like the culturally curious, they are also looking for authenticity and to learn more about the Irish way of life. They're less interested in museums. They like to explore landscapes, seascapes, and feel connected to nature. They like to get out in nature and be active in it. They often travel in spring or autumn, so they're not ideal for Heritage Week, but outside of Heritage Week, they'll also, like the culturally curious, they'll also hire a car to travel around. If they're staying in an urban base, they're more likely to explore the less touristy parts of the cities and towns, and they're interested in rural touring holidays where they know they can engage with local communities and activities. So you can see from these how what you offer can appeal to them. So our social energisers are our third segment that we target, many of whom would generally base themselves in urban cities. So we, generally come to Dublin, Cork, Belfast, Galway. They like things made easy for them. They don't like to put in effort. They like transport use to be easy. They don't use buses. They'll only use trams. They're pretty fussy. They like to get information easily. They'll use social media a lot. So it needs to be made really easy for them as to what there is to see and do in the area. They want to be at the heart of the action, but they don't want, again, like the other segments, they don't want to hang out in the touristy spots. They want to hang out where the locals are. They're looking for things that are different and that give them bragging rights. So when they go home, they've something different to talk about. And what's important to remember across these segments is that they're all looking for authenticity. They're all looking for memorable experiences, be it in an urban or a rural setting. And what's also interesting is the fact that, and this is research that's based on attractions, but we can assume the same for events, that half of all visits by overseas visitors are not planned. So the majority of the things that they plan, the majority of the places they visit when they get here, they just find out by word of mouth and when they arrive. So which touches on Catherine's point earlier about the importance of word of mouth. So it's key to generate that positive word of mouth. So this year, the theme of Heritage Week aligns very nicely with what we know helps to deliver satisfying visitor experiences that exceed visitor expectations. The man in this picture is Joe. I don't think he's here. He's a guide at Jerpoint Abbey, and he is renowned for the quality of the tour he delivers in the most charming and engaging way. Stories bring content to life. Good stories reveal what might not always be obvious. They relate to the visitor on a personal level and provoke an emotional response. Now, this looks very complicated, but basically, this is research that was done a couple of years ago with a number of visitor attractions to find out in their attraction what appealed to visitors. So, back to the story. What came out top was the guided tour and the vital role played by guides in delivering these really, really good experiences for visitors. So you can see the main drivers there. It's all around the guide's knowledge, passion, interest, the ability to deliver the story, how entertaining the story was made, how easy it was to understand. It's all around the tour guide and the story. There's other elements that come in, but those elements were the ones that really, really made or broke the experience. So just as well on that note, to touch on if you do have overseas visitors already coming to your site or to your events, ideally we like to see foreign language provision be coming into fore a bit more. You can see from the earlier slide about the target for mainland Europe that we've a lot of German and French visitors. So ideally they like to see something in their first language, but that's not always feasible, and depending on resources, and I know a lot of you are volunteers. So if I suppose when telling a story, a lot of non-English speakers, barriers can be overcome through other means, through music, drama, hands-on activities. So, we don't get caught up in having a tour delivered in the language of the French or German visitor, for example, but they can pick up on the gist of the story through other ways, and they'll still, the key thing is that they feel, it engages them and it triggers something within them, and there's always the option of producing kind of a simple print piece, just as an introduction, just kind of courtesy print to cover that piece off and to communicate the essence of the story. I'd just like to mention a couple of supports that we have available. We have two toolkits to help you to help visitors experience and connect with your story. So one is called Sharing Our Stories, which was produced a number of years ago and which was since updated and tailored to those located in Ireland's ancient East, because that's a key objective for Ireland's ancient East over the next number of years around storytelling interpretation. So this toolkit is, they're both available on our website to download, and they'll give you guides, tips and ideas as to developing guided tours, trails, and also going into the types of media that can be used to tell your story, so be it through a personal guide, an audio tour, or an exhibition panel. And it also gives guidance to communities, some guidance to who may wish to further develop their stories. So that might be a piece that might be of interest to some of you here today. Because for visitors, meeting a local person who is willing to share a story and take time can be a highlight of their holiday. It can really be the thing that they will go home and remember. And visitors are likely to stay longer in towns and villages that tell their stories well. And probably talking to the converted here, but you'll already know this, but if you're looking for local stories, obviously, the best people are the locals. And I suppose to get a different range of perspectives, it's important to get a number of different people involved and a number of people from different kinds of organisations, because our visitors have different perspectives. So it's important to capture that, and that not all good stories are necessarily set in the past or involve famous people. It's important to kind of look outside your own event, your own area, and look at what others are doing to see what's working, what's not working, and to test your event, to get, Catherine had referred to it earlier as well, about getting feedback, be it good or bad, and to test it, I suppose it's a good way of doing some market research, that you're inviting people in for a rehearsal of your event or something before you go live. So I've referring there to stories and how they can provoke an emotional response in people. People love stories about people, and the more scandal there is, nearly the better. We love the romance and the tragedy and a bit of gore, and people love it. Like, they just soak it up. So I suppose it's to focus on, have stories that are about people and led by people, and that characters are at the forefront. There's obviously a place for the context, the historical background, and that obviously all has to be researched and well evidenced, but it's how that can be told, just to make it more engaging and interactive and more entertaining. Because I suppose it's in tourism, I suppose we see ourselves, it probably come to some of you as, I'm not so keen about those people in tourism. We're in the entertainment industry, really. And there can be it's to try and get the balance with presenting the story, presenting the facts, but I suppose just making it more interesting for your audience. And in terms of the visitors, they've different levels, I suppose, of the knowledge that they want. Some people will delve deep and they'll want to know everything. They're, kind of what we'd call our intellectual visitors. There's others then, they're just skimming the surface. They're maybe on a day out with their family. They just want to spend time with their family. That's the main purpose of their visit. And if they learn something along the way and have fun, all the better. You can see just mentioning the panels on the slide there as well. They're also a good way of telling a story. We can see some panels that, there's an awful lot of information and it's information overload, and they can be a little bit maybe on the dull side, but if done right, they capture the information very well. They can portray, perhaps, say, the ruin of a castle 600 years ago, and they're very useful for those of you who mightn't have the resources to man a site, so the panel is there throughout the year then to give information. So just to I suppose partly in summary, partly to a few points that I'd like you to possibly take away today, and points to consider. As I mentioned, your site and event can really make a significant economic contribution to your local area by looking at attracting the overseas visitor. In terms of the word of mouth, it is really powerful. It's free, and whether the experience is good or bad, like, people will talk about it. But it's not only the visitors that are going to talk about it; it's the people in your area. So you need to, I suppose, for those of you who may not already engage very closely with others, such as B&B owners, the local taxi drivers, hotel concierges, local tour guides. It's really important to engage with them so that they know what your event and what you offer is all about. So, it is good to, I was referring to it earlier, that if you bring them in advance, they either run through the event, or you have an open evening, you have a little, you have a cup of coffee. You probably know a lot of the people already if you're in a smaller community. But it's important that they're going to be your salespeople as well, so you don't have to rely on, concentrating hugely on there's obviously a place for the promotion, and in terms of the media and all of that. But you can do a lot at a local level on the ground by talking to the people that are going to be meeting these visitors, and who can in turn recommend that they come to your event. And that works as well, across, not just outside of Heritage Week. Refer there to just another item that's it's available on our website, and it was the information the research I referred to earlier about the tour guide. I see it popping up there, which it's not supposed to do, but anyway, that's on our website if you want to delve a bit deeper. Again, we've spoken about the importance of a good story and how it connects with the visitor. And I suppose one key thing, and I'm not sure, some of you probably offer the event just purely for Heritage Week, others maybe it's on a more permanent basis, but we would love to see, for those of you who do not currently offer the event on a more long-term basis, if that's something that could be considered, if it suits your event, if the resources are there, because the events they're what visitors are looking for. They want, you're all doing it, and it's what we want to be promoting to our visitors. We want to be able to say to them, well, these great events going on in, wherever the case may be, that really they'll just go home and be delighted with themselves, that they kind of got that inside track and that they got the local stories and all of that. So it's important then, if you're looking at maybe rolling the event out on a kind of a more permanent basis to get good feedback from your visitors, you can do it doesn't take a huge amount. You can do a short survey on the day. You can just get anecdotal feedback, just take time to talk to some of them. I know it could be, if you have hordes of people, that might not be the easiest, but allocate somebody to do that. And find out what they like, what they don't like. People will say, generally, they enjoy event and they're positive when they're giving feedback. And a lot of us, we'll say we'll come back to an event, and I know the research that's been done by the Heritage Council, it shows people express a huge interest in coming back. And the intention is there, but we'd like to see them building on that, and to make it easy for them to come back. So, not bombarding them by any means, but get permission to get their details, send them on information throughout the year on future events, because Heritage Week, it's a great platform to introduce people to heritage and to kind of build up that audience for your site or for your events. I suppose there's so much competition out there that we want to kind of make it as easy as possible for them. Another option there is in terms of the mystery shop is another good idea. If your event is kind of running throughout the week, just do what the visitor's doing. Follow the visitor around and kind of do a bit of earwigging and just see what they like, what they not like. And it's a good way of really capturing really, really good feedback on the spot. And Catherine referred earlier to the ways of, if you don't want to engage too much with TripAdvisor, but I was in Epic in Dublin there, near the river. And they have a really interesting way. You just fill out a postcard and you post it then to your friends and family overseas. So it is a nice way of getting their feedback and still getting, a bit more promotion. So I have probably spoken a lot faster than I had planned to do. So we're coming towards the end of my presentation. There's a lot of information on our site in terms of webinars. There's the toolkits I mentioned. There's also, and sorry, I don't have the link on the slide there, but I can send it to you. You can upload events through our website, which is Fáilte Events.ie. So you can upload details of your event. You don't need an awful lot of information, just the dates, the concept of the event, what the key message is, and that will be fed through our channels. So it'll appear on discoverireland.ie to our domestic visitor, and then that in turn is also fed through to the Tourism Ireland markets overseas. So it feeds through to them all. But I suppose the important thing is timeliness is what's key there. And I know it's probably a mad rush to get things organised, but to have any hope of getting the information out there in a timely fashion, we need it, at least a month before, if not more. Like for the larger events, we ideally want at least 3 months. It's not very beneficial for, say, a week beforehand. So it's just to keep that in mind, that even if it's not fully tied down, just the dates, just a few short lines, a good picture, and you can upload it to our website, and at least it's another avenue. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can get it out there. If anyone has any questions, yes.
Sorry, no. You mentioned you get 8 million visitors in Ireland, I think, last year. 9 million.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it right as a strategy to looking at volume all kinds in terms of increasing visitor numbers? Would it not be better to concentrate on the quality of the people that you want to come in? I'm thinking in particular of those people that come from on Ryanair flights for 20 or 30 euro, 10 nights and stag nights, and could go down to Ballyshannon or Carrick-on-Shannon in those places. And I'm wondering, is it a right strategy? The farming sector are on the same track in the dairy sector, expanding cow numbers year on year. And I think it's not a good policy either. So I'm wondering, are you on the right track by concentrating on volumes all the time?
Well, I suppose when you mentioned there about hens and stags, they're not the target. They're not the people that we're targeting. Like the people that we are targeting are the ones that I spoke about. The culturally curious, say, who they'll come in. They hire a car, they travel around, and they're looking to find out more about our culture. They're interested in our way of life and our heritage. They want to find out more. They're not coming in it's not the kind of Temple Bar scenario as it used to be in Dublin, that they're coming in just for a weekend. They're not the people that we're targeting. And those people will come, but it doesn't mean that we're targeting them in our messages. But there's definitely, in terms of visitor management, that is an area that we are extremely aware of, particularly along the Wild Atlantic Way, and environmental management of, like visitors, they're coming here primarily for our landscape. That's the key thing they're coming for. And we have to be very cognizant of how that is maintained and environmental implications, and we don't want to kill the golden goose. I agree with you that it's not, the numbers are coming, but we're looking more at the revenue. We're trying to target the visitors who will stay longer and spend more and will travel around. We don't necessarily just want them just coming into Dublin and doing the coach tour that they're with the advent of motorways, that they're down to the cliffs of Moher and back to Dublin practically in the day. Yeah, they're very, very ambitious. But that's our 5-year strategy that is still at consultation phase. And yes, the targets are ambitious, but I think I'm not the CEO now, so really he's probably the man to be answering this, to be honest. But I will pass him on the message. But I think, yes, the important thing is to look at the visitor management and to look at, for a number of funding schemes that we're rolling out at the moment, it's for attractions that are currently in existence to improve the quality of the experience and to make sure that what we have is right.
May I?
Sorry, yes.
Just, it's not my area, but I've been the figures, I'm attracted to the figures. You said something about 8 million to the Republic, 10 million to 6 countries.
Oh.
I'm thinking of other figures. Paris received 84 million less foreign visitors last year. We have people of Irish extraction in one way or another, 40 million in the United States. Is there any value in concentrating on find your roots? Rather than thinking in terms of what you've been told, the details that you've been talking, thinking in the bigger picture. Find your roots. Aim yourself at the 40 million people of Irish extraction. Come and find your roots, and then you can fill in all the details with your Atlantic Way and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in other words, target numbers, almost the opposite to my colleague here, because numbers bring money.
Well, a lot of those, quite a number of our visitors, they would have, particularly the Americans, they'll come here to do exactly that, So our colleagues in Tourism Ireland would, they'd be engaged with, genealogical societies overseas and all of that, So it's an element of it. It's certainly not something we don't ignore,
I have an experience of that where we have a link with the History Committee in Australia, and that was actually their sort of sole purpose and interest.
Right,
in Ireland. Sort of last 2 years ago, we had a group of genealogists and historians, and we took them to the. But the question I had there on your the distribution hotspots.
Oh yes, yeah.
I noticed that the Northwest, in Donegal, where I come from myself,
Yeah.
hardly features on the map of Ireland. Why is that?
Yeah.
And albeit that when you mentioned Brexit, geographically,
Yeah.
we're closest to Brexit. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's north of the Wild Atlantic Way, there is not the same level of footfall. The pattern has been, and we're trying to shift it, that visitors have gone south and north of Galway. One of the reasons is there isn't the same amount of stock there, as there isn't the same supply. So we're trying to. One thing we're looking at is does north of the Wild Atlantic Way require a big attraction that's going to drive people to that area, that will transform it? Because visitors... Oh yeah, I agree with you, and we totally agree, and it's just the pattern, the visitors, they have their...
Is there any link between Fáilte area and the similar and the tourism board in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, we would. Yeah, no, there is. There would be quite a bit of engagement. Yeah, but it's something that we're very aware of and trying to address to try and drive traffic to the northwest.
Helen, I'm sorry, we do have to leave it there, but if
sorry,
Helen's
I'm
here for
around.
another little while.
I'll stay for the next until lunchtime. So.
It's kind of a little question. You're focusing on international visitors.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what's the strategy for domestic, given we have to reach zero carbon emissions by 2035. I'm just kind of interested in where that fits in to the whole tourism.
Yeah. To be honest, I'll probably have to have a separate conversation with you because I really focus purely on international, and my remit is around the development of experiences for international visitors, and obviously domestic as well. There's the knock-on effect. I suppose we're very involved in the terms of the domestic marketing more so, but yeah, I might have a conversation with you then. No problem. So. Thank you very much.